The dust motes danced in the thin beam of light slicing through the shuttered windows of the Bologna archive. Girolamo Cardano's fingers trembled slightly as he carefully turned the yellowed pages of Scipione del Ferro's private papers. His persistence had finally paid off. Weeks of polite inquiries, strategic gifts, and scholarly charm had granted him access to these precious documents. And there it was. The handwriting was cramped but methodical, the date clearly penned at the top of the page. Cardano's breath caught in his throat. The solution to the depressed cubic equation, written in Del Ferro's own hand, dated years before Tartaglia's famous mathematical duel with fear. Cardano sat back in his chair, the wooden legs creaking against the stone floor. He pressed his palm against the ancient document, as if absorbing its truth through his skin. A complex mixture of emotions crossed his face: vindication, excitement, and something else, perhaps the first shadow of rationalization. "The truth has many roots," he whispered to himself. Del Ferro found it first, if only partially, and took it to his grave. Tartaglia rediscovered it through pain, only to lock it away out of paranoia. He stared at the elegant mathematical notation, the perfect confluence of symbols that unlocked one of nature's deepest mysteries. "Knowledge this profound cannot belong to one man," he continued, his voice firmer now. "It belongs to the world, to the advancement of the art." His fingers brushed against the folded paper in his pocket. Tartaglia's sworn oath that Cardano would keep his cubic solution secret. But that oath had been given under false premises, hadn't it? Del Ferro had been first. The truth demanded light. 5 years later, Cardano stood in a Nuremberg print shop, watching with undisguised pride as pages rolled off the press. Ars Magna, the great art, his masterwork synthesizing all known algebraic knowledge. The treatise would change mathematics forever. The printer held up a freshly inked page, and Cardano nodded in approval. There, in crisp black letters, lay both Del Ferro's and Tartaglia's methods for solving the cubic equation, carefully attributed to each man, but framed within Cardano's brilliant exposition, his mastery bringing order to their discoveries. "Let the world see the whole tapestry," he murmured. "Let history judge." The printer didn't hear him over the rhythmic press of the machine, but it mattered little. Soon, copies of Ars Magna would travel across Europe, carried in saddlebags and trading vessels, passed from scholar to scholar. Some would hail Cardano as a genius who had finally codified the new algebra. Others would call him oathbreaker, thief of secrets. The Republic of Letters buzzed with the controversy, and Cardano's name was on every mathematician's lips. Niccolò Tartaglia's workshop in Venice was normally a sanctuary of order. Books stacked precisely, instruments placed with care, papers meticulously organized. But not today. He held the copy of Ars Magna in trembling hands, his scar, a remnant of French soldiers' brutality in his childhood, livid against his pale face. The pages fell open to the section on cubic equations, where his name appeared alongside his solution. His solution. His discovery. His pain-wrought secret. "Liar!" he screamed, his voice breaking, his childhood stammer returning with his rage. "Perjure!" He swore. He swore on his soul. With one violent sweep of his arm, he cleared his desk of books and papers, sending them crashing to the floor. Ink splattered across stone tiles like black blood. "He took my life's work," Tartaglia stammered, his body shaking with fury. My papain. My discovery. And PRI printed it like common go gossip. The carefully constructed fortress of his mind was crumbling, brick by mental brick. The betrayal wasn't just Cardano's. It felt as if the equation itself had turned on him, the mathematical truth he had discovered now escaping his grasp, slipping from his sole possession into the world at large. That night, as he worked feverishly by candlelight, writing pamphlets denouncing Cardano, the numbers on the page began to writhe. The cubic equation, x superscript 3 plus mx equals n, seemed to pulsate. The variable x began to spiral before his eyes, dividing infinitely, fractalizing into patterns that seemed both meaningful and terrifying. The QUARTIC, he whispered, clutching his head. It doesn't close. No solution, only confusion. He wasn't sure if it was madness or a glimpse of a deeper, unsolvable mathematical horror. But whatever it was, it fed his obsession for revenge, consuming him entirely. Master Cardano, if we treat the cubic solution not as an endpoint, but a tool. The young man's voice was quiet but confident, his eyes bright with intelligence. Lodovico Ferrari scribbled equations rapidly, his hand moving with the fluidity of true understanding. Though barely out of his teens, there was nothing juvenile about his mathematical insight. Cardano leaned forward, watching his protégé work. Ferrari had come to his household as a servant boy, but had quickly revealed prodigious talent. Now he was Cardano's most brilliant student. Perhaps we can reduce the fourth-degree problem? Ferrari continued. Transform it. Show me, Lodovico, Cardano said, his eyes gleaming with pride. Show me. Ferrari explained his method with elegant precision, reducing a general quartic equation to a solvable cubic one, a stunning breakthrough that had eluded the greatest minds of the age. Cardano watched with the pure joy of a master witnessing his student's ascension. Lodovico, Cardano thought, though he did not speak it aloud, his mind is pure light, untouched by the shadows that haunt Tartaglia or the weight of secrets that burden me. He sees the path forward. When Ferrari presented his quartic solution at Milan University, the hall erupted in applause. The young mathematician stood modest yet confident, his exposition clear, his proofs impeccable. His loyalty to Cardano was evident in every attribution, every grateful acknowledgement. As the crowd began to disperse, a commotion near the entrance drew attention. Niccolò Tartaglia pushed his way forward, his face etched with bitterness, his gait unsteady. This boy? Tartaglia's voice carried across the hall. Solving the QUARTIC? Impossible. The room fell silent. Ferrari turned to face the older mathematician, his expression carefully neutral. It's Cardano's work, Tartaglia continued, his stammer more pronounced in his agitation. Stolen and put in the mouth of his SE servant. Another trick. Ferrari stepped forward, maintaining a respectful distance from the agitated Tartaglia. Master Tartaglia, he said calmly, the work is my own, though born from Master Cardano's teachings. I defend his honor and the truth of the mathematics. His voice lowered, but remained clear in the hushed hall. If you doubt it, challenge me directly. The gauntlet was thrown down again, but this time, Tartaglia faced not a custodian of secrets, but a true innovator. The older man's eyes narrowed, his scarred face tightening with suspicion. A duel then, he hissed. In public, before witnesses. The duel in Milan. The Church of the Garden in Milan overflowed with spectators on August 10th, 1548. Nobles in fine clothing sat alongside scholars in simple robes. Clerics whispered among themselves. Governor Ferrante Gonzaga presided from a raised seat, his presence lending official gravitas to the mathematical confrontation. Hidden in the crowd were shadowed figures, members of the Ordo Numeri, the secretive mathematical brotherhood, watching with intense interest. Cardano himself was conspicuously absent, a fact that Tartaglia immediately seized upon. "Where is your master?" Tartaglia demanded as he took his position. His voice echoed in the vaulted space. "Too ashamed to face me directly?" Ferrari stood opposite him, calm and composed. "Master Cardano has business in Pavia. I stand here of my own accord, on my own merits. Tartaglia launched into a tirade, his voice trembling with rage and paranoia. He stands here on Esteo's stolen ground, he shouted, pointing accusingly at Ferrari. Defending a liar. His methods are know-nothing but echoes of what was taken from Mimi. The crowd murmured, some sympathetic to the older mathematician's obvious distress, others embarrassed by his lack of composure. Ferrari waited patiently for the outburst to subside. When he spoke, his voice was measured, his logic precise. He defended Cardano with calm reason, presenting the evidence of Del Ferro's prior work. Then, with elegant efficiency, he shifted to the mathematics itself. He posed complex problems, not just cubic, but quartic and geometric challenges. With chalk on slate, he solved Tartaglia's problems swiftly, explaining each step with crystalline clarity. When he detailed his quartic method, even Tartaglia's supporters leaned forward in undisguised fascination. The question, Master Tartaglia, Ferrari said, his chalk tapping thoughtfully against the slate, is not who held a secret first, but who builds upon it for the sake of truth. Mathematics progresses through sharing, through building, not through hoarding and bitterness. Tartaglia tried to respond, but faltered. Ferrari's logic was unassailable, his mastery evident. The crowd sensed the shift, their murmurs growing louder. Tartaglia looked lost, his anger giving way to visible despair. The brilliance that had once defined him seemed to dim before their eyes. That night, under cover of darkness, Tartaglia slipped away from his lodgings. His shoulders were hunched, his gait unsteady, his face a mask of defeat. He fled Milan before the second day of the duel could expose his humiliation further. He vanished, Ferrari would later write. The duel was won not by final argument, but by his silence. His flight was the last, tragic equation of his public life. In the days that followed, Ferrari was declared the victor, lauded by the governor, offered prestigious positions. He had become the new face of Italian mathematics, young, brilliant, forward-looking. The torch had been passed. The sundering of the Ordo. In hidden chambers across Italy, members of the Ordo Numeri met in urgent conclave. Their secret brotherhood, dedicated to mathematical mysteries since the days of Leonardo Fibonacci, faced an unprecedented crisis. The public dissemination of these solutions violates our most sacred principles, an elder member shouted, raising a copy of Ars Magna like evidence of heresy. The age of secrets is ending, countered a younger mathematician, pointing to Ferrari's papers. Knowledge moves too quickly now for the old ways. The order fractured along these lines, secrecy versus openness, tradition versus innovation. Some cells went dark, their members withdrawing into deeper shadows. Others embraced the new era of public disputation and printed works. As the mathematical world transformed around them, the key figures in the cubic controversy followed divergent paths. Ferrari taught openly, his quartic solution disseminated across Europe. Young and untroubled by the shadows of the past, he embodied the move toward public science, toward mathematics as a collaborative enterprise rather than a secret art. Cardano, though famous, grew increasingly isolated. His astrological practice overshadowed his mathematical achievements, his mystical preoccupations deepening. When news arrived of his own son's execution for murder, the personal tragedy seemed to confirm his belief in fate's cruel hand, pushing him further into esoteric studies. And Tartaglia? He returned to Venice or perhaps Brescia, teaching minor subjects, his genius consumed by bitterness. Few remembered him in his final years, and fewer still visited his deathbed. The man who had once held the key to the cubic equation died nearly forgotten, his brilliant mind having turned inward upon itself, devouring its own light. The equations endured, Cardano wrote in his later years. The solutions are known, but the harmony Pacioli dreamed of, the unity Leonardo sought, fractured. Perhaps division is the price of progress. The return of the Book of Zero. The flames licked hungrily at ancient manuscripts in a Florence library, consuming centuries of knowledge in minutes. As smoke billowed into the night sky, a cloaked figure moved silently through the chaos, retrieving a charred fragment marked with a perfect circle, a page from the legendary Liber Xeris. Weeks later, the same figure descended into a hidden vault beneath a Bologna church. This chamber, once the meeting place of an Ordo Numeri cell, lay abandoned, its secrets left to dust and time. From a collapsing wall section, the figure extracted another fragment of the ancient text. The Null Emperor, face always hidden in shadow, examined these pieces with reverent care. The fragments spoke not just of zero as a number, but as void, as potential, as nullification. They hinted at mathematics beyond equation, beyond solution, a mathematics of unmaking. In a hidden sanctum lit by ghostly blue flames, the Null Emperor arranged the recovered fragments on an altar-like table. A low, whispering voice filled the chamber, echoing with otherworldly resonance. They chased roots, solutions, finite answers in an infinite weave. Fools. Gloved hands traced a diagram from the Liber Xeris, concentric circles surrounding a perfect void, annotated with symbols no conventional mathematician would recognize. They saw the cipher as a tool, a number. They didn't grasp its essence. The fragments seemed to pulse with an inner light, casting strange shadows on the stone walls of the sanctum. The diagram depicted what might be called the invocation of null sets, a mathematical ritual of terrible power. It is not absence, the voice continued, growing in strength. It is the foundation, the potential from which existence is calculated and uncalculated. Where others seek roots, I shall take them asunder. Let equations die. Let emptiness be whole. Outside, storm clouds gathered unnaturally fast, swirling in patterns too regular, too geometric to be natural. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the figure standing before the arcane diagrams, a silhouette radiating cold power, the culmination of mathematical secrets kept too long in darkness. The war for the soul of mathematics was just beginning, and its first casualties would be those who believed all equations could be solved.